hopefully today we're going to be making an app that's it's responsive and looks good on not only web, but also for mobile and tablet as well. So this is mostly going to be a demo, but there is some theory that we have to cover. Particularly, we have to figure out what responsiveness is, and more importantly, what responsiveness is not. So in order to figure out what responsiveness is, let's take a look at some of the approaches. So I know in the beginning when I started development, I used to use a lot of if statements to make
Aneeb,
my,
थोड़ी
yeah,
सी noise आ रही है.
noise aa rahi hai.
माइक थोड़ा सा नीचे करो, noise आ रही है.
Hello, ab kaisa hai? Ab sahi hai? Acha. So in the beginning, I used to use a lot of if statements to make my app responsive. But the problem was this with this is that it combines two concepts, which is adaptiveness and responsiveness, right? Sahi hai na, Mike? Abhi sahi.
थोड़ा सा शोर आ रहा है अचानक से, बट आई थिंक सही है.
शौकत ने आके मेरा माइक ठीक कर दिया. चलो सही है. अच्छा, ठीक है. तो the problem with this is that it combines two concepts, adaptiveness and responsiveness. So now let's take a look at what adaptiveness and responsiveness is really quick. So adaptiveness has to do with the functionalities of the device, and responsiveness has to do only with the UI, the presentation layer. Okay. So an example of adaptiveness is like if I have to use like a geolocator service, or if I have to find the coordinates of the user, then there's a separate implementation. If you've ever tried on native, though, there's something different on Android, there's something different on iOS. And making your app adaptive, you would use like a Dart package to get the location of every user. And under the hood, it uses the native Android / iOS APIs, but you're making adaptive by using one package. Now, responsiveness is something different, where it doesn't have anything to do with the functional capabilities. It only has to do with the screen and the real estate that's available on your device. So that's just a bit of theory that we have to know. And then let's get right into our demo, okay? So for our demo, I have this really basic web UI, right? And then hopefully we're gonna make this adaptive by the end of this demo. So to start off, there's I think two main things that you have to do to your project in order to start making it responsive. So the first thing is you absolutely need to know the width. So if I take this and I make it smaller or bigger, I have to know what's the width of my screen so I can make my breakpoints accordingly. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to get your size. Yeah, and then you want to print out the size. And then you will see if I restart this. Now, if I make it smaller and bigger, you will see that it prints out the size. So this is essential for making our breakpoints. And then the second thing that is absolutely necessary is you need a helper base class, which tells you if you're on mobile or tablet or desktop. And so basically I have this very simple class, which has a couple of static functions. This is just so I don't have to do this logic every time when I want to find out if it's a mobile or tablet. And then also this takes in 3 widgets, one of which is optional. So we have mobile, tablet, and desktop, and then you just return a separate design for every screen that you're building for. So also these values are not like random. So I actually looked at my design, and based on that design, we made this value. So for example, if we go down to around this width, you will see this is around 1100, and around this width you see that our menu starts getting very small. So that's why around 1100. So I said any width that is greater than 1100 is a desktop, anything smaller than 1100 is a tablet, and then anything smaller than 850 is a mobile. So these values are based on the UI that you are making. These are not set in stone. So these are the two things we need to get started in order to make our app responsive. Okay, so now let's actually make this app responsive. So as you will see, up to here is fine. So I keep on making it smaller and smaller. And then this is kind of how you start making your app responsive, is you try to break your app. So if I make it around here, you will see that this bottom starts overflowing. And this is what's really good about Flutter. It tells you when there's stuff in your UI that's breaking. So we see that this is breaking, but for now, I'll ignore this because the first thing that we do to make our app reactive is, you remember how we set the breakpoint when it's below 1100, it's tablet. So the first thing we do is on tablet functionality, we want to hide the sidebar and we want to show a menu icon instead, because the sidebar takes up a lot of space and we don't want to show that. So if you see, we come up here to our side menu. Now we can use the helper class from our responsiveness. So we can only show the sidebar if it's a desktop. So if responsive dot is desktop, then we can show this sidebar. And then if I refresh this, you'll see that until 1100, it shows my, and then as soon as I go below it, and then it removes my dashboard, my sidebar. So this is the first step, but also we have to show a menu icon. So I will go into my header widget and then here at the top. So now we have to show the menu icon if it's not a desktop, right? So if it's not a desktop, then we can show a simple icon button and then icon. Right. Oh, also we need an on press. So for now, okay. So now as you can see that when my design is big, it shows my dashboard. And then when my design is small, it shows my menu breaker icon. We'll change the functionality later, but now we're just looking at UI. So this is the first step. Now let's go back to the previous part where, as you can see, this my file section is overflowing from the bottom. So now we'll see how we can make this part reactive and make it look a bit nicer for smaller screens. So let's go into that widget. So my files. Oh, I already have it open. So this is my files. So now if we see the widget which is actually breaking, it's this builder of grid view right here. So the reason why I made this a row, why I made this a grid view and not a row to begin with, is that using grid view is really easy to make things responsive. And if I was using a row, this would be much harder. So pretty much you can think the grid view is your best friend when it comes to making things responsive. Why? This is because of two properties that it has. The first one is cross-axis count, and the second one is child aspect ratio. So just to give you a little demo, if I take this child aspect ratio and I make this 1.1, for example, and I make it smaller, okay, and then we refresh, you will see that immediately our thing which was overflowing, it doesn't overflow anymore. So it just makes everything a bit more spaced out. So this is one thing we can do. And another thing we can do is, if we have, let's say, 4 items in a row and we go into our mobile view, you can see that these are extremely small and not really visible. So what we can do is, from mobile view, we can make this 2. And then if I refresh this, you can see that now we have a much better UI for a mobile view. So these are kind of the tactics that we're going to use. And also we're going to combine this with our responsive widget, which is what we made for different views for mobile and for desktop. But first, like how I like to work it out is I like to go from bigger screens to smaller screens. So first, let's fix this UI for desktop only. So let's just find the width where it breaks. So let me just save this. And here's why we always log the width, so I can tell at what width it starts to break. So let's just go smaller, 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 and then there. So around 1200, my design starts to break. So what I will do is, oh, I've already taken size up here, but I'll find the size. And then if my width, and then we don't want to stop it at exactly the value. So because even before it starts looking bad. So let's do around 1300. So if it's greater than 1300, then I'll do 1.4. And then if it's smaller, then I'll do 1.1. Also, is, yeah, there we go. So now you will see that once my design is a bit bigger, right, it shows this nice. And then once it starts getting a bit smaller, then see there, it gets a bit bigger. So now we've made this part more responsive. And now as you will see, once it gets smaller, we don't have to worry because we removed the sidebar. So now this looks good for now. Okay, so now we're finished with the transition from desktop to our tablet size, right? So now let's try to transition from tablet size down to mobile size and see what else starts to break. So if we go a bit smaller and smaller, now you will see that this starts to break, but a bigger issue that I'm seeing is that this graph starts to overflow and this part looks really bad. So here's just another tip in general. When you want to make UIs for a smaller screen, you want to use columns and you don't want to use as much rows, because for tablet, we have lots of screen width and we can show 2 columns. But for a smaller screen, we probably want to show this storage details down here. So that's what we're going to do next. So let's just go into our homepage and let's try to put this storage details widget down here. So if you see, we have this storage details widget down here. So the first thing we should do is let's just hide it if it's not a bigger screen. So if it's not a desktop, sorry, if it is a desktop, then we will show it. 1 second, let me plug in my charger. Okay.
You want to show it for tablet and desktop, so it should be not mobile.
Yeah, I was just plugging in my chargers. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah. So if, where were we? Okay, let me just refresh this. Okay, so now as you can see, if it's only a desktop, it will show it over there. If I remove this, you'll see it's gonna go back to showing it on the sidebar, on the side right here. Okay, so we just want to add this, and we only want to show this side storage details on the side if it's not if it's a desktop, and then where we want to show it on mobile preferably would be down here, right? So what we do is we go into our column of my files, recent files, and then underneath recent files, if it's not a desktop, because remember we already made the desktop down here, then we can add our storage details down here, just like that. So now if you take a look, we have the storage details down here. Also, it needs some padding work, so let's just add a padding. Default padding. Okay. Where am I messing up right here? If, all right. So now you can see this looks much more cleaner for a mobile. And then if we make this a bit bigger, back to our desktop, boom, it goes back there. So obviously we can make some more adjustments, like on tablet, maybe we can show it on the side as well. So maybe if only it's a mobile screen, we can show this, right? And then over here we can do, if it's not a mobile, we show the other one, because I think on tablet it still looks fine if we show it on the side. So now let's take a look at that. Yeah, it looks fine on tablet. So we go all the way down to tablet, and then as soon as we hit our mobile breakpoint, boom, okay, it goes down here. So now we kind of fixed the storage details. Now let's go back and see if our, oh, and you'll also see that, you remember when this was breaking, now it's not breaking, because as soon as we hit the point when it's going to break, we move the storage down and it doesn't break anymore. All right, now I would say that we're done for pretty much 3 types of screens. So we're done for our desktop, we're done for our tablet. Actually, I think there's one more thing we should change, this header right here. So for this, we have our search bar is fine, but when we go a bit smaller, I would preferably like to show the search bar a bit bigger. So let's go into our header, and so we have a spacer here with flex 2. So we can just make this flex based on our it's responsive. So responsive dot is desktop 2. And then if it's not, then we can make it 1. So that will just kind of put what am I missing? Context. Here we go. Right. So now you will see that here our search bar is kind of smaller, and then right as we get here, it gets a bit bigger. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's okay. Our search bar is a bit bigger. I think if we remove this and go back to our old one, just to double check. Yeah, so it's much smaller, and then after our changes, we can see that search bar is much more bigger, much more usable for mobile. Also, another change I want to do is when we go really small into our mobile view here, I want to kind of make this this avatar smaller and maybe remove dashboard as well, because mainly we just want to see the search. We can't see it on mobile at the moment. So the first thing we do is let's just go and remove Angelina Jolie. So we can just come down here. This is our text, right? So we can just do if responsive dot, and if it's not mobile, then we show Angelina Jolie, and if it is, then we don't. Right, so now we've kind of just like removed the text for all screens which have mobile size. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to remove this dashboard as well. So let's just go up to where there's dashboard, and then we can add our this mobile here as well. And then we can kind of remove our spacer as well. So if it's desktop, then we do 2, and then perfect. Okay. So now as you can see, for any screen which is mobile, we remove the text from the username, and we also remove our dashboard. So now we have a nice little full search bar for our mobile views. Now, if we go a bit smaller, so now I would say this looks pretty good for desktop, and for tablet, I would say is good as well. Maybe over here I would change this, but that's okay. And then when it goes smaller than tablet, right here, we have our mobile view, and then sorry, this is our tablet view. And then when we go even smaller, this is our mobile. So yeah, this looks pretty good. Another thing I just want to do real quick is just add our menu functionality. I can put, and then here we just go. I've made this function already. I guess this is out of scope of just responsiveness, but just for the looks, I want to do this. So yeah, now our dashboard is showing. Now here it becomes a sidebar, and now here it becomes this. Okay, nice. All right, now I think there's one last thing left to do, which is for really small screens. So if we just go into our demo right here, and sorry, our inspect element, and we go into like iPhone 12, you'll see that while this top part, the header we changed looks good, this documents part looks really bad. So now let's just go back to our My Files. And now, so you see how we've only changed the width based on our desktop, but we haven't really done anything for mobile. So now let's try something for mobile. So let's do why can't I add this responsive? Let me just add this responsive right here. Oh, it's already added. Okay. Okay, and then we want to see if it's a mobile, then we want to do, let's make this, let's show only 2 of them. Right, so if it's mobile, then we do 2. Otherwise, we'll just show the normal 4. So yeah, now that looks way better for mobile views as well. So now we can go all the way smaller. Maybe let's pick a smaller device. Let's see, iPhone SE. What is this? I think this is Chrome. But yeah, if we go on a mobile view, we can see that this looks perfect for mobile view. And then now let's just go all the way back. Okay. All right, now let's just do one last check all the way from the beginning. So this is our desktop view. So it shows our dashboard, shows our sidebar, shows our storage on the side, shows this text. And then right as we go smaller, then right here, we noticed that this was starting to break. So we added just a bit of extra padding right here, but we're still in desktop mode. And then right when it hits 1100 width, which is right here, it moves to our tablet mode. So in tablet mode, we just added this menu bar. We made this search a bit bigger and we didn't change anything else. And then as it goes smaller and smaller, oh, this is one thing we should probably change. So now this is our mobile view, but this is not really as small as what we intended. It looks very bad at this. So let's try to change it a bit. So I think we should keep it 4 over here, and then we should just see if, let's see how much width we have over here. So our logger is logging around 814. So from 814, and then it starts looking good around here. And this is 500. So let's say if it's greater than 500, okay, so if it's mobile, we do 2. Sorry, if it's mobile, and if size.width is greater than 500, we do, sorry, less than 500, we do 2. And then otherwise, we just do 4. Hold up. Yeah, another 4. Okay. So this is kind of complex logic. We could simplify this a bit. We could put this in a function, but just to demonstrate. Okay, it looks, maybe over here we should start doing something different. I guess 600 is where we should cut it off, because after 600 it starts overflowing. So 6, let's do around 620. So yeah, these are just some nitpicks that you have to watch out for. And then this, maybe we should do, we should make the child aspect size ratio more. So, and then is mobile context, and then if it's mobile, then we do 1.3. Otherwise, we just do 1.1. So if you make it 1.3, I think it will look a bit better. Yeah, so that looks a bit better. And then when it goes back here, but then here it starts to break. So yes, this kind of nuances you have to look out for, I think. Here, let's just make it 1.2, whatever. So yeah, as you will see by the process that I'm doing here, it's a lot about fine tweakings and just mix and match. Wow, really? Okay. All right. We'll just leave it as it was. Sure. Thank you, Noshapai. Okay. So let's just take one last look at it and then let's finalize this. So this is desktop, and then we go down here, it gets a bit bigger. Then we go to desktop, we remove sidebar. Then we go here, and then we have our mobile, and then here we show 4 grids, and then we go smaller, 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 and then right as it gets here, we show 2 grids. Perfect. So yeah, I think that's the end of our demo. I just want to do one last thing, is I want to show it on an actual device. So let's just boot up our emulator. This might take a bit. So yeah, we have 5 minutes left. So if anybody has any questions, you can start asking your questions.
So, Aneeb, one question, like, can we split the responsive logic to a separate file? Like, see, you mixed everything in different files.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, even we can do it in the same file. So there's really cool thing about, I don't know if other editors have this, but in VS Code, you can just do this and you can extract this into another widget, right? And then we can call this our responsive file view, right? And then to this responsive file view, like we can take an access count, for example, and then we can take aspect ratio. And then what you can do is you can do all this logic, which I did here, except you can pass it into a widget and you can put this widget into a separate file. So yeah, you can obviously abstract it away if you want. Just for demo purposes, I'll show it in one file. Okay,
Thank you.
so I think emulator, yeah. So this is on the emulator. And then as you can see, works nicely. Doesn't scroll. Oh yeah, this is scrolling. We should probably put a physics.
Okay, Aneeb, one question that have you faced any blocker in designing the screens? Like you reach a point in which at which you designed a very separate component for web and a very separate component for mobile.
Yeah, it definitely happens a lot, especially with like things you can control. Like if you're using charts library, for example, even in this we used a charts library. So some things are just out of your control. Like for example, this chart, I can't make it any different. I can't change the UI. So for stuff like this, then yeah, you can't make it any more responsive than it already is. So maybe you have to use a different charts library for mobile, different charts for web. So yeah, this blocker definitely occurs, especially
Okay.
with third party.
And these third-party libraries, do they claim that they support both web and mobile, or they just create their libraries for any one portal?
Uh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Let's actually check because this is the library I'm using. So let's see if they claim. Okay, highly customizable. Okay. Nope. It doesn't claim to be multiple. Oh, see over here it says platform, Android, iOS, web, Windows. But as you can see, although it's saying all these platforms are supported, once we go,
It's
uh,
supported, but not in the sense of
yeah,
responsiveness.
yeah, not responsiveness supported exactly. So looks good on mobile as well. Looks good on desktop. So I think that's conclusion of our demo.
I
Any
can
more
see
questions?
these charts are looking okay on both desktop and mobile. Why you're telling that it's not highly customizable?
Here, I'll show you. If we go back to the responsiveness that we did, right here, let me just comment this out. And let's just comment this out. So if we don't do our changes, then you'll see why it's not customizable. So if we go here, see, it starts to overflow from the container. Like it doesn't get smaller based on the screen size. See, I'm getting smaller and overflows and everything is going off the page. So that's why I wouldn't say it's responsive. If they wanted to make it responsive, maybe they would move this text, make this text smaller, make the chart smaller, something, to make it better for mobile.
What changes did you make specifically for this? Can you show?
Yeah, so I just uncommented them. So what we did is if it's in desktop or tablet mode, it shows it on the side. But if it goes small enough where it's a mobile view, we put it down at the bottom. So we can actually show the whole chart. If we didn't do this, it would just overflow.
So why do you need to just place it on the side? Instead, you can do you can place a container that can place itself at the bottom when there's no much space available to you.
Container can't really place itself. We have to tell it. Like for example, this thing right here, this expanded widget, like we told it, okay, if it's not mobile, then you place itself. Container, we can't really tell the container that, oh, if it's mobile, then do this. So the whole point of all this is to tell the container, okay, if the screen size is this, then go here. If the screen size is this, then go here. So that's what we're doing here.
Okay.
So this is a container, and then we're just using our responsive class to tell it that if it's not a mobile, then you place yourself here. And if it is a mobile, then you place yourself here.